Servus Männer, it's Red Pill Germany again. On this weekend, the German opposition, the AfD party, held their federal convention in the beautiful city of Dresden. They decided on their program with which they want to run for the federal election in autumn this year. And there were a couple of surprises in there. The biggest one you already saw on the thumbnail, and this is what I want to talk about a little bit today. It is the DEXIT. That means that the over 500 delegates that met in Dresden, they decided that Germany should leave the European Union, or that should at least be in their party program for the upcoming election. Of course, the AfD has always been critical of the European Union and the common currency, the euro, but so far they have not put the demand in their program that Germany should leave the Union and the euro. So in my point of view, that is the most sensational outcome. This is the biggest news from my perspective from this weekend. And there were other points as well. And I want to talk about those maybe in an upcoming video. In this one, I want to focus on this point. I just want to mention how they want to present themselves, what the main idea is, and I think that is described best by their slogan, and that is Deutschland, aber normal, which translates to Germany, but normal. And I understand this as they want a Germany that is the opposite of our clown world that we're living in currently. They want to go back to a common sense Germany where normal law-abiding citizens and hard-working Germans can have families and they can live in peace and security and have a stable currency and the rule of law is guaranteed, not this anarcho-tyranny that we see today where rules are selectively enforced and so on and so on. A lot of these topics that I'm talking about and that many others are also talking about, I think this is the anti-clown world slogan. Germany, but normal. This is what the AfD basically wants. So what was the big surprise then on this weekend? Well, there is a reason why the AfD has not put the DEXIT on a program so far. And as you know, I say that time and time again, the AfD did not start as a nationalist party. They started as a party of Western German economics professors, and they didn't like the euro and they didn't like the European Union. They wanted to go back to the Deutsche Mark, or they wanted to reform the EU and so on and so forth. So that means these remnants of these old Western German economics professors that are still in the party, but I mean they have left the party. A lot of them have left the party. Mr. Lucke, for example, Frau Petri, okay, she's a chemist, but you know what I mean, right? These centrists that are not feeling at home in the CDU of Angela Merkel anymore, but they're also not really feeling like traditional Germans. They are not nationalists. They have no special love for their country and their people. They're just, not every one of them is actually an economics professor, of course, but I think that describes this group best. And these people are always afraid that the AfD is seen by the voters as too right-winged, too extreme. And this is why they want to stay in the center. They want to stay like a CDU under Helmut Kohl, which, I lived through this time with Helmut Kohl at the helm, at the lead of the CDU party, and I can tell you there were a lot of things happening there that were definitely not okay. For example, there was a lot of uncontrolled immigration already under Kohl. So going back to the 90s under Kohl, it doesn't really help us right now. But that again is already my opinion. I'm sorry, I should describe what happened in the party first before I give my opinion. So it is very clear to see that there is a conflict conflict, and there has been a conflict for a long time between the more nationalist camp, of course, and the economics professor camp from Western Germany. They want to be an 90s CDU party, okay? And that doesn't really go together that well because Kohl has never been a nationalist, for example. These more centrist-minded people, they always talk about their Christian values and European here, European there. That is very important for them. And once again, it is their fear that the AfD will lose voters when they appear to be too right-winged, too nationalist. And they also don't want the party to be seen as a socialist party. They do not like the welfare state. They are, economically speaking, they're liberals or even neoliberals. Whereas the nationalist camp has no problem with the welfare state as long as Germans are receiving that help, or at least people who are integrated here, who came to this country obeying the normal rules and through the proper channels. So this is why Mr. Gauland and Mr. Meuthen, they warned, they were very cautious, and they said we should not put the DEXIT into the program. But a lot of delegates were in favor of that, and they said the time for reform in the European Union is long gone. They don't see any hope to just reform the European Union at this point from the inside. I mean, the European Union has gone so far. I reported on that in my latest videos, right? The debt union and the plastic tax and all these things. So promise after promise was broken. These centrists, they always had conditions, like no European country should ever be made responsible for the debt of another European country. And now all these promises were broken, and they just shrug their shoulders and think, well, we tried it, but they don't actually do anything. And the only thing you can do is to suggest at least to leave the European Union. If Germany were really to leave the European Union would be over. Without Germany, it can't exist. Or should I say, without German workers' money, they cannot exist. So even though Meuthen and Gauland were against that, the delegates decided, and it wasn't even a close decision. I think it was over 60%. It was a very clear decision. The majority of the AfD is following the more right-wing, the more nationalist wing. That is, of course, very strong in Eastern Germany. And they were following them on their path, and they put the DEXIT on the party program. And that is a clear indicator also that the nationalist side becomes stronger. And that means the AfD can be an actual alternative, like their name suggests. And they wouldn't be an alternative if they just want to be a CDU without Merkel, because that is not an alternative. That is mainstream centrist globalist politics. And of course, I should add that of course Germany will not leave the EU because the AfD puts it into the program. It is a small party. They will not rule Germany. They will not be part of a coalition anytime soon. But nevertheless, I mean, the Green Party 20 years ago, they put things into their program, or let's say in the 90s when they weren't ruling yet. By the end of the 90s, together with Schröder, they did rule actually, but they put things in their program that couldn't be realized in the next year, but they still put them in there. And sometimes these things put pressure on the sitting government, and they might do things that they otherwise wouldn't have done. My best example that I sometimes bring up in a case like that is Angela Merkel when she turned around 180 degrees and she went from pro-nuclear power to we should stop nuclear power. And that is because she feared that she would lose votes to the Green Party at that time, even though there are no earthquakes in Germany. I think you know what I'm talking about. But the presence of an alternative was a threat to the current government or to the then sitting or ruling government, and that was enough for them to change their behavior. And the AfD could also be a threat as an alternative to voters. Like, if you don't do what we want, like protect the borders or this and that, then we will vote for the AfD next time. That is an indirect action, an indirect effect, but it still is an effect nonetheless. So this is why I think even though the AfD will of course not be in a ruling coalition after autumn this year, they still should put that into their program. As a political party, you should always make your program and your demands heard as if you were about to rule. The meaning of a party program is you want to communicate to the people what you would do if you were in power actually. And this is what they clearly did. So, to sum up, the AfD put the DEXIT, that is the demand for Germany to leave the European Union, in their party program for the federal election in this fall. And that can be seen as a clear indicator for the fact that the more nationalist, more right-wing part of the party is gaining power over the remnants of Western German economics professors who want to go back to the 90s and have a CDU party just without Angela Merkel. And I see that, of course, as a very good sign, because in this way the AfD can potentially be a real alternative, like they suggest with their name. Otherwise, they wouldn't be an alternative. I think the AfD, in the way that Meuthen wants the party to be, is no alternative. And I will talk about this in some more videos that are coming up soon. And I think it is very clear that Meuthen's days in the party are numbered. He will go the way of Lucke and Petri. And the future of the AfD party is probably not determined by Mr. Meuthen. He will have no future in this party. That is at least my prediction, and I know that there are many people in the party working on that at the moment. A big thank you to all my supporters and my subscribers. If you like these news, if you like this material, like, share and subscribe, and especially follow me on all tech platforms. Diversity is our strength after all. If you want to support my channel, you can do so directly via PayPal or support me on Patreon or Subscribestar. The links are in the descriptions down below. Enjoy the rest of your day. Servus, Kameraden.